Welcome back to the VinWiki Appraisal Panel, where alongside John Temerian and John Ficarra, we appraise the car collections of various YouTubers and automotive influencers. And today we're going to talk about PetFred, Fred Courteau, who happens to be the founder of our sponsor, ModFind. Now, Fred is actually the first automotive influencer that I can personally remember. About 20 years ago, long before Instagram, long before YouTube, Fred was extremely active on a lot of the automotive forums that I would read, especially 6-Speed Online. And Fred developed a custom of amazing modification of the latest and greatest cars, especially at the time, from Porsche. In fact, his 996 with a full Tech Art GT Street body kit, full Evolution Motorsports EVOMS modifications to the engine, 750 horsepower, I remember wanting that car so badly when I was in college. And so since then, the chance to follow along with his, as you'll see, much more substantial car collection today has been huge. But please do check out ModFind. They're our sponsor of this series so far, and we can't thank them enough. It's an amazing enthusiast marketplace where you can buy or sell new, used, OEM aftermarket, any parts or accessories related to the automotive hobby. You can find some of my stuff that I need to get out of the garage listed on there, and they've been a great supporter of VinWiki over the years. So John Temerian and John Ficarra, thank you guys so much for joining me again.
Thanks, Ed. These are a lot of fun to do. I really look forward to each time we get together and look at all these great cars.
I always feel like I learned something from you, John, one way or the other. I feel like I walk away from each one of these with a bit of knowledge.
We're going to start with Fred's P1. His McLaren P1, one of his more recent acquisitions, really nicely spec'd white car. But the most interesting thing about the car is in fact that it is on its way to Lanzante, and they are going to put their HDK, their high downforce kit package on it with totally new aero, an homage to obviously the McLaren F1 with its high downforce kit option. I love the way those cars come out looking. I mean, the regular P1 is obviously brilliant. He's talking about doing the upgraded battery to make it a little lighter, a little faster, and a whole lot of fun stuff. But I've seen some of his ideas for the spec, and it is going to be wonderful. It's hard to say exactly how much value that's going to add. Your normal P1s are going to be 1.2 to maybe 2 million, depending on the miles and the spec and the condition. This is going to push it upward. I put it with the high downforce kit at 2.75.
Yeah, I was looking at these, and it's interesting. When you modify an already amazing car, how much value does that actually add? There's lots of people doing it. Canepa is building his special 959s, which are pretty tremendous. There's a lot of other guys modding these cars and making them cooler. I just have a hard time when you take a P1 and change it like they're doing. That's great. I don't know what they're charging for it. Say they charge $1 million for the conversion. I only think it adds maybe half of that value. So if you can pick up a P1 that needs work, that, say 1.7, you just add $500,000 to that. So I put it at $2,250,000.
I disagree a little bit. I think because who they are, it's not like, some local body shop is doing this. I think it does add, I think it does add value. I think they look sick. I remember seeing a metallic green car that Lanzante did at Quail, I think, last year or the year before. And I think it makes the P1. I'd put it at 2.5 million.
Now, Fred's next car is a Senna, but it's no normal Senna. It's a Senna GTR that's been Lanzante converted for road use, and it is street titled in the US. As I understand it, this is an unrepeatable thing, and it makes the car extremely, extremely special. Now, a Senna is give or take $1 million, but with the insane cost of the modifications, I think that car, as it sits today, is about 2.4.
I agree with you, Ed. It's super special. I mean, what's not insanely cool about driving basically a race car on the street? And you won't see one again. You probably won't see one anywhere. Super rare, super cool. I'm going to put it even more than that, just because you can't get Lanzante to do this again. So I'm going to put it at 2.7 million.
This is truly a tremendous car. Street use, street legal. What street is this thing legal for? And where would you want to drive it? There is there's the backlash of people who have converted race cars for street cars. People who drive 962s on the street. I think it's a great idea. I hope it stays legal, at least whoever owns it and wherever they live. I put it at 2.5.
Fred also has the two recent long-tail cars from McLaren, the 675 LT and the 765 LT, both in truly ultimate specs. They're both factory MSO roof scoop cars, every carbon thing you can put on them, and then in many cases modified a bit beyond that. And so I really like the way he's got each of the cars set up. I said 4.25 for the 675 and 625 for the 765. Honestly, I think I'd rather own the 675. I think it's the prettiest car McLaren's made of late, and his is certainly the ultimate spec.
Yeah, I'm gonna just agree with you on that. I'm gonna disagree a little bit on the prices, but I agree on what you said about the cars. I like the 675 LT. I think it's a beautiful car. I put that at 400, and I put the 765 LT at 650.
I rarely deal in these McLarens, so I'm literally just going to sort of copy you guys. I put 425 on the 675 LT and 650 on the 765 LT. I do see a lot of enthusiast collectors keeping the 675 LT over the later car and pursuing the 675 LT. So I think that's a very cool car for the long run.
He also just got an F40. Actually, I think if I'm not mistaken, John Temerian, he bought two of them from you. His is now in a Marlboro livery with a full LM body kit, but I'll let you talk more about that, Temerian. I think his car is worth about $2.5 million.
So we originally sold Fred it was like a 5,000 mile F40 that was completely a bone stock car, and the car basically arrived to Miami. And in that time, about 30 days later, we had bought an original non-cat, non-adjust, very rare 89 F40 that someone in period, a Japanese collector, actually purchased all the parts from Michelotto, and they built an LM. Now, luckily, they took all the original parts and put them in crates and boxed them up to go with the car. So the car arrived with the full LM kit, dialed in, badass, LM turbos, etc., with all of the original parts in the box. And that's essentially what Fred was planning to do with his bone stock F40 that he purchased from me. So I sat down with him and I said, Fred, instead of spending another $200,000 to modify your bone stock car, let's literally just swap keys. I'm gonna put it at between probably around 2.4. I think that's where the market is today, and maybe a touch more just because of the fact that it is a non-cat, non-adjust car, which is rare and very desirable.
I'm going to agree with you, John, because that would be the smartest thing to do since you know the car. People really need to dig deeper into the F40s. They are tremendous machines. It was, they took their Formula One technology and just dumped it into a street car. It is just brilliant in everything it does. This one seems to be fantastic. So I actually put it at 2.6.
Fred has several other Ferraris. He's got a Testarossa, a Challenge Stradale, a 430 Scuderia, and a 458 Speciale. Those last two, I've seen him drive on the last two Gold Rush rallies, and I have to say, we were there representing ModFind, but I was so jealous of the cars that he was driving because they were just spectacular. Again, Fred has this custom of doing every modification you could imagine while still making it seem like a great package. And you guys know I'm not one generally for heavily modified cars, but the way the cars look, the wraps that he's done, they look spectacular. So I'll run down that list. I had the Testarossa at 180, the Stradale at 250, the Scud at 275, and the Speciale at 375.
To have this little collection of Ferrari sitting out in front of your house would be just stellar. Now, the Testarossa I'm most familiar with because I'm old, but they really moved in the market. I remember when they were like 60 grand all day long, but now they're really moving up. They're not the greatest cars to drive, but they look spectacular, and if you want to put on your Miami Vice outfit, it really works to go to Radwood. The rest of the Ferraris, dynamite. I put them at 200 for the Testarossa, 250 for the 360, 265 for the Scuderia, and 365 for the 458.
So his Testarossa, I'm not a huge fan of Testarossas. I love the 512 TR. I think it's a much better car. I put it at 150. His Challenge Stradale, I know the car very well. I didn't sell it to him, but I knew the original owner. It's Grigio Titanio, so incredible original color. I put it at 250. The 430 Scud, I put it at 250 as well. And the 458 Speciale, I'm in love with that. I think it's one of the best modern Ferraris. I believe his car is white, which, White Speciale to me is like the ultimate. I put that car at $385,000.
Now, Fred has a 1987 Lamborghini Countach 5000 QV, a very iconic version of the legendary Lamborghini Countach. These have had some amazing market comps lately. I think the thing's worth all of 650 grand today.
So we actually sold this car to Fred. I know it very well, fully serviced. We went through everything on this car. He's been driving it a lot as well. Very low mileage car and probably the best, or I would say most desirable color for collectors today. It is triple white, 3,000 miles. I'm gonna put it a touch higher than that. I'm gonna put it at 665, but I just see a white Countach going up and up and up in value.
If you have to have a Countach, you have to have the ultimate poster car, 80s car, triple white, just an amazing car to look at. I don't know about driving it, but looking at it, you could look at it all day long for, I said, $657,500.
Fred's next car is his Diablo. He doesn't quite have it yet, but I would assume it's about to board a plane. And John Temerian, you can tell us a little bit more about that one, but he has now the ultimate Lamborghini Diablo. Fred has the ultimate version of a lot of different cars, but he has a GT on the way, one of my personal favorite Lamborghinis. I wish I was a few inches shorter to fit in one comfortably, but the GT, there were only 80 of them made, plus a few prototypes. His is black with a two-tone interior, super special car. It's worth well over $1 million. I put it at $1.1 million, and I don't see any world in which it ever goes down.
I agree with you, Ed. I think it's not just the ultimate Diablo in many ways, but it's the ultimate modern Lamborghini. It's probably one of the most rare, with the exception of like an SE30 Yoda or something like that. And it's so, so beautiful in person. You know, the fit and finish of the GT is just, it's like an F50 or Carrera GT. It's a hand-built, all carbon fiber car. The throttle bodies are absolutely insane. You hear them when you floor it, you know, sucking behind your head. So it's just, to me, it's the ultimate. I think these cars are so undervalued when you think of a Carrera GT at 1.7 million and they made 1,200. So, you know, I'm going to put it at 1.250, but I think these cars are way, way too cheap compared to the rest of the market for rare hypercars and supercars.
You know, I've never been a huge fan of the way the Diablo looked. When it came out, I thought it was kind of a letdown after the Countach. But if I had to have one, the GT would be it. That thing looks amazing. It's got all the business going on. And yeah, the rarity, really, it is surprising that it's not worth more, but easily worth 1.2.
He has two of the best AMG cars you could possibly own. He's got the CLK DTM and the new GT Black Series. They're both now matte black and really, really cool setup cars. Tons of fun to drive, and you can't argue with either. I put it at $550 for the CLK and $525 for the Black Series.
There's no doubt the CLK DTM car is just fantastic. It looks great, sounds great, does everything great. I would have one if I had that kind of money sitting around. And the AMG GT Black, again, monstrous. So I got the DTM car at $575, and I put the AMG GT Black at $525 and $1. This will be my Price is Right car for this edition of the appraisals, because I think it's going to go over that. I think at the right day, you'll definitely be above that number.
So I actually sold him the DTM. It was a one-owner car with like 6,000 miles, so really nice car that had been in the US since new. Obviously one of 100 coupes for the world, a black car. I love this car. I've talked about it on our YouTube. I've talked about it on our Instagram. I've had 4 DTMs. They were not built by AMG. They were built by their racing division, HWA, and they're truly a race car for the street. I put it at $600,000. The AMG GT Black Series, they're you know, I think they're bringing up lower now. At one point, people were asking $700,000, $800,000. But the reality is, I think they're going to come down a touch. I put it at $500,000.
As I said, I got to know Fred based on Porsches. He had a Carrera GT and every version of the 911 in the early to mid 2000s. He has the ultimate 911 they've made of late in the 911 GT2 RS. Nicely wrapped car. He's driven it a lot. Super duper cool. These are coming down a little bit, but I still think that one probably brings close to $400,000.
I agree. It's really a top spec car. They're amazing to drive. I've fallen away from 911s as they've gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. And you see this car in real life, and it is huge. I don't even know if it classifies as a sports car anymore, more of a GT car, even though it's wicked quick. I put it at $375.
I agree with you. It is one of my favorite modern cars. I think the GT2 RS is perfect. I put it at $375.
The car that really doesn't fit in the bunch is his brand new 911 Targa. Now, I know that right now there's more than a 2-year wait at every single dealership to buy any spec, base Carrera up to the GT cars, for a brand new 911. But Targa, in terms of the cars that it sits next to in his garage, or his brand new man cave as you're seeing pictures of as we scroll through, again, is a little bit, I don't know, normal. But it's a really, really gorgeous car. It's going to bring something over its MSRP, but I think, at least I hope, that the world gets a little bit more normal sometime soon and it drops back down to something that makes sense. I said $180,000.
I actually like the Targas. Targas have kind of been the redheaded stepchild of 911s for years, and for different reasons. They were flexy early on. They weren't great functional when they were in the 993s. But I like them. And if this is a 4S, so I think this is like the perfect car to have in your ski cabin. You know, have the top back, beautiful day, and your snowboard strapped to the back of the thing, and just go hoon it out in a snowy parking lot. I think this is a great choice. And I'd probably, you know, they're about 200 grand.
So I don't have a ski cabin, but I know Fred, I think Fred has this to enjoy sort of cruising around Miami. I get it. I love this car. I'm not a huge fan of new cars. I drove a Targa manual recently, and I was basically like, okay, this might be the perfect new car all around. I'm going to put it at $220,000.
His other Porsche at the moment is a 1994 911 Carrera Turbo. It's an amazing spec. Temerian, you can tell him more about it because I think you found him that car. I said $275 for this one.
You know, I actually didn't find him this car, but I love these cars. I think the 3.6 turbo is one of the most iconic looking 911s. I daily drove a 993 turbo forever, so I know just how good the cars are. It's obviously a different car, but I still love those 90s turbos. I don't know how rare white is, but I'm going to assume it is. So I actually put a higher number. I put 350 just because his car is white, but very, very cool car.
Yeah, these are fantastic cars, and they were ignored for a long, long time. But they're so well balanced. You know, they had taken everything they learned from the first generation of 911, and they rolled into this. They made the engine bigger. The turbo was fantastic. I mean, it was really a driver's car. It was nothing like modern sports cars today. It had no nanny devices. You drove it. If you did something wrong, the car would do something wrong. But just a phenomenal car, still going up in value. I put it at $340,000.
In addition to all these amazing hypercars, Fred also has a few more daily driver cars you can take the dogs somewhere in, and I know that Fred loves his dogs. He's got a Land Rover Defender, a 2020, the newer version of the Defender, every possible accessory customized. I think he had the guys at Wheels Boutique set that car up for him. I said $80,000 for that. He's also got the Audi RS6 wagon, perfectly spec'd, fits in nicely amongst these as the car that you actually might be able to carry something somewhere in. I said about $140,000 for it. And he also bought back his father's Bentayga. Unfortunately, Fred's father passed away recently, and this was a car that he'd owned and customized, and so now that car I think is probably worth about $160,000.
You know, the RS6 is a fantastic car, and if anybody can get their hands on one, yes, do that immediately to take your dogs and kids out. Like, just do it. I put that at $150,000. The Defender, I think, is butt ugly. A former owner of a early series vehicles that I've had a few of those. I knew what they were trying to go after. They missed. So I'm just going to put it right under 80 at $79,000 just because I think they're hideous. And the Bentayga, and now you said that his father died. I feel really bad about this, but I only valued it at $1 because I think they are awful. They are like the biggest mistake Bentley ever made. They can make all the money they want on them, but that is not a Bentley to me. You can keep it.
So you kill me, John. I put 80 on the Defender, but I do know that, listen, there is a waiting list for those cars. They are hard to get. They're bringing over sticker. I tried to get one for a friend recently, and I was told like I basically couldn't. So unless we paid over sticker, the RS6 is completely epic. Any major collector car owner I know has one. I put it at 155 because I know they're bringing a lot over sticker. The Mentega, the emotional value there, I think you're right. It's sort of a dud, John, but I think the reality is, 185, I don't know where they're at today, but the emotional value there as well for that car. So I think it's super cool that he bought it back.
Any way you slice it, he has a phenomenal collection in cars and amazing taste in cars. And we obviously want to thank him and his whole team at ModFind for supporting this series on VinWiki. We've had a lot of fun appraising cars. We'll be back with some other collections soon, but please do check out ModFind. PetFred, Fred Courteau, is the founder and CEO of ModFind, as well as a partial owner of Gold Rush, The Fuel Run, Exotics on Broadway, and the ModFind app truly is an amazing place. It's the perfect place for you to buy and sell your favorite parts or accessories from the automotive hobby. New, used, OEM, aftermarket, you can list them there, and they even have a patent pending now for their kickback system. So you can put a kickback on anything that you want to sell. So if one of your followers refers one of their followers to buy your product after they share it, they can get an amount of money. It's a super cool system. A lot of my stuff is currently for sale there, so be sure to check it out and download their newly updated app now. Thank you both Johns for being here again today.